One of the biggest mistakes I see parents and teachers and tutors making when they have a child who's struggling with learning how to read is that they're only focusing on one thing. And in reality, we need to be working on 3 different things in order to help our kids really thrive with their education. And before I get into our Ready, Set, Go method, which is exactly how we address all 3 inside of all of our programs, I'm going to give you the inside scoop of how we help kids, not just with becoming great readers, but with so much more. Of course, becoming great readers that happens too. But I want to show you exactly how we're doing this and how you can start doing this too to help your child just crush it with reading, with learning, with school, and so much more. We'll get into it. But first, I'm going to show you this little triangle. Here's a little triangle. This is going to go over what are the 3 things we actually need. I just mentioned most people want to do one of the things, okay? The one that's very obvious that I'm sure teachers are doing for your child. If you have tutors, you've probably worked on these yourself, and that is literacy skills. This is the one that's very obvious. If you want your child, and I should put this first, if you want your child to be an independent reader, meaning they can read on their own, they can do their homework on their own, they sit down and read books for pleasure. You can ask them, hey, I need help on this recipe. It's way over there. Can you read the recipe to me so I can cook over here or whatever? Your child can read and they can understand what they're reading. So literacy skills is the one that's, I would say, very obvious. They need to know their letters. Yep. They need to know how to break words into sounds. They need to know what words mean. We need to be building really robust vocabularies. We need to be helping our kids learn a lot about the world around them because background knowledge is huge when it comes to comprehension. They have to know certain things. I think of it like if I sit down to read a book about, let's see, what's something I know nothing about? Cricket, like the sport of cricket. I'm in America. Cricket is not really a sport we play here. I know nothing about it. I don't know what the ball is. Is there a ball involved? I don't know what the players are called. I don't know how many. I know nothing about it. So if I'm going to sit down and read this big book about cricket and it's just all in like terms that I've never heard, I'm not going to understand that book. But if it's something that I know, if it's a book about how to teach reading, I'm going to know it. I'm going to be able to read that pretty easily because I know a lot of the terms and all the stuff. We need to be giving our kids access to fancy words, to different topics so they can read. And then we also need them to be able to lift the words off the page. They need to know their phonics. They need to be able to read fluently, all that stuff. That is what your child probably had support with, right? You probably helped them with this. You've seen worksheets, do more drills, do more flashcards, all this stuff. It's the one that's very obvious. But there's 2 other parts. If we want our kids, especially if they're a struggling reader, if we want our kids to be an independent reader, we have to address these other 2 parts. And that's what I'm going to talk about right now. The first part is what I refer to as brain love. I want our kids to fall in love with their brains. I do. I want you to fall in love with your brain. I've fallen in love with my brain. We care so much about like our outward appearance. You know, I want that 6-pack. No, I don't. I've never wanted a 6-pack, but you know what I mean? Like we care a lot about the things that people see, but we don't think much about the squishy thing in here. But the squishy thing in here is kind of important. It's very important. And I think it's important that as humans, we have a basic understanding of what's going on in here so that we can take better care of it. We can get better results. It drives up intrinsic motivation a ton when our kids know a little bit about what's happening. And I'm not saying they have to go get like, you know, their PhD in neuroscience or anything, but the basics of neuroscience, the basics of how they learn. I ran out of room. I apologize for that. Basics of how they learn, what's going on. What are neurons? Why are they important? What are synapses? Why are they important? How do we create pathways in our brain? How do we rewire our brain? How does the brain learn to read? Because we're not born with reading brains. So what do we do to turn a brain into a reading brain? If we can give our kids that just basic knowledge of it, like I said, their intrinsic motivation. So when we say, hey, we're going to go work on some phonemic awareness where we're talking about sounds and words, they're going to know the why. Why should I do this? Oh, so I can read words more quickly. I can understand how words work, connect them with other words that share similar sounds and learn them more fast and more quickly. Beautiful. I will do that exercise versus just do it because I told you to. Well, that never works very well. Do it because I said so. No, we got to tell them the why. Basic neuroscience gives them the why, gives them the reason to try, to show up. And then our kiddos that are neurodivergent, like myself, I have ADHD, I'm autistic, so I am wired differently. My son is autistic, has ADHD, he's wired differently. Knowing the basics of their wiring is going to help them be less ashamed. It's going to show them that, yeah, it might take a little bit longer for you. If you're dyslexic, yeah, it's going to take longer. Doesn't mean you can't do it. You got to show up and you got to keep trying. And we'll get you there if you keep trying. If they can understand that basic part of neuroscience and how their brain works, so good. And a lot of people are missing that. They're not teaching kids how they're learning. The other part that is also very important, let's see, I'm going to go with purple, is what I call self skills. What do you mean self skills? What does that mean? Self-confidence, self-awareness, self-advocacy. These are just a couple of the examples. So when I think of growth mindset, when I think of kids believing in their abilities, that is what I would put under a self-skill. Do they believe they can be an independent reader? Have you shown them their wins? Have you shown them that they've come really far? No matter where they are on their journey, they've come really far. Are they confident enough that they can get to where they're going? Can they advocate when they need help? Do they know how to ask for help if something doesn't make sense? Instead of shutting down and throwing their book across the room, do they know how to go to a teacher or a parent or a friend and go, hey, I'm stuck on this word. Can you help? These self skills are very, very important in that motivation piece too, right? If a child doesn't believe they can do something, why would they try? I don't believe I can be on an NFL team. American football, if you're not in America, it's American football. I do not believe I could go against 20-year-old men that are tall and jacked and they're going to kill me, basically. I don't believe I can do it. So what's my effort level of trying to go get on an NFL team? 0. I'm never going to do that. That would be ridiculous because I don't believe I can do it. It's okay. It's not impacting my life. I'm not doing that. But your kids, it's the same thing. If they don't believe in themselves, if it's a story they've been telling themselves, we have to help them rewrite that. We have to rewrite that story for them because they're not going to do it on their own. We have to be the leaders showing them, here are all the times that you've learned something new. Here's all the times when you didn't quit and you got to the end, you got to the finish line. Here's all the skills you have learned. And help them shift their identity, shift their belief in themselves. It's so, so important. And there are specific things you can do to encourage this with your kids. So if you have a child who is struggling to become an independent reader, yes, you need literacy skills. I'm not saying skip that. You need it. But do they also need to understand more about their brain? And do they also need some support in that internal belief, their self-confidence, their self-worth? Self-worth is a big one. Do they believe they're worthy of your attention and people's help? Or do we need to work on that? Is that a skill? Because it's a skill that we can work on them intentionally. Now, let me get back to, I needed to show you this because now this next part, this is the framework we use inside of every single lesson in Miss Buddy Reads and in Thrive. Because I wanted to touch on all 3 of these sides of the triangle in every interaction I have with your kids. I don't want to just focus on literacy skills. That's not enough. So what we do is we start every lesson, every mini lesson. So these lessons are about 10, 15 minutes long. They're very short because that's our kids' attention span. And it's actually better to do lots of short learning versus one long learning. So that's why we do that. So every mini lesson starts with get ready. Now, get ready is where we work on our brain love. You know what? I said that wrong. I'm going to rewrite that. Get ready is more of our self skills. There we go. I was going through the triangle, but I did it out of order. It's fine. This is where we're talking about their belief in themselves. This is where we are taking deep breaths and calming our body. This is where we are talking to our brain and saying, brain, thank you for working so hard. This is 1 to 2 minutes of warming your child up and getting them in a state of mind where they're ready to learn and they're ready to try. And we're intentionally going through exercises that are going to slowly build their self-skills. This, unfortunately, as much as I wish there was a magic pill for all of this, where you take the magic pill and it's all good. No, it's building and stacking little learnings over time, just like planting a seed. That's where amazing growth comes from. So if you can, every single time you do a learning time with your child, build in a minute or two of intentionally helping them believe in themselves, shift to a growth mindset, and understand why they should try. Beautiful. So that's how we start. Get ready is your self skills. Here, get set. I'm not going to do yellow. That'd be too hard to see. I'm going to do it in green. Nope. I'm going to do pink. Get set is where brain love comes in more. Because this is where we're doing a lot of review. I call it rewind and review. We want to strengthen neural pathways that we've already created. So when your child is learning something new, imagine it like, okay, I've learned it. Let's see if I can do it. I've learned it. Yay. I've used this pathway. I'm starting to build this pathway. Every single time they're practicing it and revisiting it, they're using that same pathword. It's like I'm trying to say password. Pathway. There we go. They're actually strengthening it and making it better. Think of it like a beaten path. You're walking in a forest. If you walk the same route every time, eventually all the leaves and stuff are going to be stamped down. You're going to see your pathway. It's going to get easier and easier to see that pathway and take it. That's what we're doing. We want to go back and consistently and constantly revisit things that we've learned to make it so the connections we're making are really going to stick and not just be like, oh, I learned this once and now I'm good. Then it gets swept away and goes away. So every time I do a mini lesson, I want about 2 minutes of review. So let's say this is 2 minutes. This is 2 minutes. And then we get into go, which is, of course, the part that is also very important, the literacy skills. And I do spend the most time here. This probably ends up being about 7 minutes, 6 to 10 minutes. So that's where it's kind of a range depending on what we're doing. If we're writing, if we're reading, if we're just listening and doing an explicit instruction where we're just teaching them something, it varies a little bit, but it's about we'll say 7 to 10 minutes, something like that. And this is where we are explicitly teaching kids the skills we want them to know. If I want my child to learn that OI, when it's next to each other, it spells oi, oi, oi. That's my favorite sound. That's my favorite English sound. Oi, oi, oi. If I want to know that and OY spells oi, oi, oi at the end of a word, I need to directly teach them that. I need to look at examples with them. We need to be listening for it in words. We need to be reading words, reading sentences and stories. We need to be writing words, writing sentences, writing stories with these sounds to, again, with the pathways up here, start building the pathways. So here's where we're starting to build it. In the review, we're going to keep building it and keep using those pathways, but we got to start somewhere. This is starting to build those connections. When you can have a learning time that looks a little something like this, get ready, get set, go, you are now hitting on so much more than just the literacy skills. Now you're teaching your child a little bit about how their brain works and using skills that's going to really connect those. And you're showing them that you can believe in yourself. You can have a growth mindset. You can do anything you want. There's one other part that is really special that we have inside of our programs, and that is what I call Thrive Session. In Miss Buddy Reads, it's called Pump It Up. But I might be rebranding that to a Thrive Session just so it's the same in each. But it is a very intentional. So this one is a 10 to 15 minute mini lesson. And it's all you do is this one part where I am teaching something specific. So if it's brain love, I kind of go back and forth between brain love and self skills. I teach about neurons and the best practices of making sure it sticks, the importance of sleep, the importance of what you eat, how to take care of your brain. So basic neuroscience. And then I'll go back and forth. I'll do that. And then the next week, we'll talk a little bit about self skills. We'll do a growth mindset exercise. I'll tell a story where they can understand about how they can look at mistakes differently. Mistakes doesn't mean you're wrong or bad. It means that you're learning and it's normal. So intentional exercises to boost their self-esteem and intentional exercises to teach them about their brain. So I always do this about every 6 or 7 mini lessons. I have a Thrive session so that we're intentionally teaching brain love and self skills. And then we embed it into every single mini lesson. Now, where you can take this, you can absolutely take this framework and run with it and figure it all out. You can do this. Parents, you can do this. You can learn how to do self skills, brain love, and literacy skills. You 100% can. If you want it done for you. If you want me to do it for you, because I've become obsessed with all of this. So this is literally my favorite thing to teach. If you want me to do it for you so that you just hit play, enjoy it with your kids, learn it with your kids, sit down and talk about the brain love stuff. Maybe you don't know the basic neuroscience yet. And as they learn it, you can learn it too and have really great conversations. Learn the techniques that we use for self skills and embed it into your day. So you don't have to go learn it all yourself. You can learn it from me with your child, and then you have common language and common resources that you and your child both can use to build up your self skills. This is stuff I'm still working on for myself too. It never goes away. Even as adults, we're still working on this. The literacy skills. Maybe you don't remember what diphthongs are or digraphs or what are the syllable types again. Maybe you're not aware of those, and that's okay. You don't have to go become a reading expert. You can join Miss Buddy Reads if you have a kindergarten through second grader. You can join Thrive if you have a third through eighth grader, and I can do all of this for you. Wouldn't that be amazing? Imagine just 2 months from now. Most families in about 2 months have seen massive growth. Within the first week, you'll see some growth. You're already going to see them trying a little harder, being excited to show up within the first week. After about 2 months, though, you're going to be like, whoa, is this the same reader? Are they excited to do their reading lesson? Can they read this story on their own? Did they write this letter? Are you serious? You're going to hear them. My favorite comments I get from parents is when I heard my child in their room doing homework and they were repeating some of the positive affirmations we have as they were doing it. Mistakes mean I'm growing. Mistakes mean I'm growing. So they're using these self skills and these brain love skills as they're doing other things. Like this impacts their entire life. It's amazing. That's why at the beginning I said, like, this impacts so much more than just reading. Reading is like a little part of it. It's a fun part of it. And I love the reading part, but it expands into everything about your child, their education, their self-worth, their friendships, their communication. It all is impacted by this. So anyways, I have more information below if you want to check out how to grab a spot in Miss Buddy Reads or Thrive. Let's get your kids doing this. Not only an independent reader, but so much more. And I'd love to be a part of that journey. Or if you want, take the Get Ready, Get Set, Go and figure out how to implement that in your family. And you're going to see so much growth. You got this. We've got this. Let's get your kids reading.